Mankind crossed into the Dominion, and even the galaxy's fury left them calm. Part 1: The Breach. The ship shook hard. Red lights filled every room. Alarms screamed through the metal walls of the as it flew through space that no human had ever seen before. Captain stood in the center of the bridge. He did not move. He did not speak. He simply watched the main screen as strange colors swirled outside the ship, colors that had no name, colors that hurt to look at. "Captain," said Lieutenant from her station. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "We have crossed through something, the rift near Neptune. It pulled us in." Nodded slowly. He already knew this. He had felt it in his bones when the ship had been grabbed by that invisible force and thrown across the universe like a stone. "Where are we?" he asked. Looked at her screens. She checked them twice, then 3 times. "I do not know, sir. The stars are wrong. They are arranged in patterns, perfect patterns, like someone put them there on purpose." Communications Officer Park turned in her chair. She was young, barely 25 years old, but she had been chosen for this mission because she was the best at her job. "Sir, I am picking up signals. Thousands of them. No millions. There are voices out there. Many voices." The bridge went quiet. Every crew member stopped what they were doing. They all understood what this meant. They were not alone. They had never been alone. And they had just walked into someone else's home without knocking. Chief Science Officer stepped forward. She was a small woman with hair and calm eyes. Nothing surprised her anymore. She had spent 50 years studying the universe, and she had always believed that other life existed. Now she was proven right. "Captain," she said, "the stars outside are not natural. They have been moved, arranged. This is not random space. This is territory. Someone owns this place." Took a deep breath. He turned to look at his crew. There were 30 people on the bridge, and 2,300 more throughout the ship. They had left Earth 8 months ago to explore the outer edges of the solar system. They had never planned to go this far. "Listen to me," said. His voice was not loud, but everyone heard him. "We are in unknown space. We do not know what is out there, but we are human beings. We have faced the unknown before. We will face it again." Before anyone could respond, the ship shook again. But this time it was not from the rift. Something had grabbed them, something big. "Captain," shouted, "ships! There are ships appearing around us." On the main screen, the crew watched as points of light began to form. 1, 5, 10, 20. The lights grew larger and took shape. They were warships, massive warships. Each one was bigger than anything humanity had ever built. Each one could have crushed like an insect. Counted them quietly. 37 ships, Captain. The smallest one is 3 kilometers long. Engineering Chief Wu stepped onto the bridge. He was covered in oil and sweat. He had been working below when the alarm started. "What is happening? Why are we stopped?" No one answered him. They were all looking at the screen. The largest ship moved forward. It was not 3 kilometers. It was not 5. It was almost 20 kilometers from end to end. It was black and silver, covered in symbols that glowed with soft purple light. It looked old, ancient, like it had been flying through space since before humans had learned to walk. His console beeped. "Sir, we are receiving a message, audio only." "Play it," said. A voice filled the bridge. It was deep and cold. It spoke in a language that no human had ever heard, but somehow they all understood it. The words went directly into their minds. "You have entered the Dominion. You have trespassed into sacred territory. We are the rulers of 11 galaxies. We are the conquerors of 9,000 species. Your kind is unknown to us. This is not a request. This is a command. Kneel before the Dominion or be unmade." The message ended. Silence returned to the bridge. Medical Officer Shin checked her tablet. She was monitoring the crew's health. Heart rates were up, stress levels were high, but no one was screaming, no one was crying. They were afraid, yes, but they were still standing. "Looked at, sir. What do we do?" thought about Earth. He thought about his wife and his daughter. He thought about the billions of people back home who did not even know that their entire species was now face to face with something greater than they had ever imagined. He also thought about history, about all the times humanity had faced impossible odds, the ice ages, the plagues, the wars, the bombs. Every time they had been told they would not survive, every time they had survived anyway. Said, "Open a channel to that ship." Hesitated, "Sir." "Open a channel." She did. Straightened his uniform. He looked directly at the screen, at the massive alien vessel that hung in space like a mountain floating in darkness. "This is captain of the human vessel. We did not mean to enter your space. We were pulled here by a rift that we did not create and did not understand. We apologize for the intrusion." He paused. The bridge was silent. Everyone was watching him. "But we do not kneel," continued. "Not to anyone, not ever. We would be happy to talk. We would be happy to explain who we are and where we come from. But if you are waiting for us to beg, you will be waiting forever." He nodded too. She closed the channel. Stared at her captain. "Sir, they have 37 warships. We have one science vessel with no weapons." "I know," said. "They could destroy us in seconds." "I know." "Then why did you say that?" Smiled. It was a small smile, tired and sad but real. "Because if we are going to die out here, we are going to die as humans, and humans do not kneel." Outside, the alien fleet waited. Inside the largest ship, Fleet Commander reviewed the message he had just received. He had conquered civilizations that spanned entire galaxies. He had watched beings of pure energy bow before him. He had ended species that had existed for millions of years. But he had never received a reply like this. He played the message again and again. He studied the face of the human captain. He saw the fear in the man's eyes, but he also saw something else, something he did not understand. The human was afraid, but he was not going to surrender. Leaned back in his command chair. For the first time in 1,000 years, he was curious. "Hold your fire," he ordered his fleet. "I want to see what these creatures do next." And across the cold darkness of space, two civilizations looked at each other. One ancient and powerful, one young and fragile. Neither one knew what would happen next. But one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. Mankind crossed into the Dominion, and even the galaxy's fury left them calm. Part 2: The Demonstration. Fleet Commander had lived for 12,000 years. He had seen the birth and death of stars. He had watched entire civilizations rise, grow, and fall. He had led the Dominion to victory against enemies that most species could not even imagine. In all that time, he had never met a species that did not understand its place. He stood on the observation deck of his flagship, the Eternal Night. The ship was old, built when the universe was young. Its walls were made of metal that no longer existed anywhere else in the cosmos. Its engines ran on the energy of captured stars. It was a weapon, a palace, and a tomb all at once. Through the massive windows looked at the tiny human ship. It was so small, so fragile, he could crush it with a thought. But he did not. Instead, he called his war council together. 12 beings of different shapes and sizes filled the chamber. Some were made of flesh. Some were made of light. Some existed in multiple dimensions at once. They were the leaders of the Dominion's military arm, and they had been conquering galaxies for longer than most species had existed. "The humans have refused to surrender," announced. The council stirred. This was not surprising to them. Many species refused at first. None of them refused for long. "They are ignorant," said one. His name was, and he was made entirely of shadow. "They do not understand what they face. Show them, then they will kneel." Nodded slowly. "Perhaps you are right. Perhaps they simply need to see." He gave the order. On the bridge of the captain watched as the alien fleet began to move. They were not attacking. They were repositioning, forming a pattern around a small moon that floated nearby. "What are they doing?" asked. Studied her sensors. "They are pointing their weapons at that moon, all 37 ships. They are charging something, some kind of energy weapon. I have never seen readings like this." Looked up from her console. "Sir, we are receiving another message." "Play it." Voice filled the bridge again. "You do not understand the Dominion. You do not understand what we can do. Watch, learn, then you will make a better choice." The message ended. Looked at the moon on the screen. It was lifeless. No atmosphere, no water, no value, just a rock floating in space. "Everyone," he said quietly, "watch carefully." They watched. The 37 ships all fired at once, but they did not fire missiles or lasers or anything that humans recognized. Instead, they fired darkness. Pure, absolute darkness. A beam of nothing. An absence of everything. The beam hit the moon, and the moon stopped existing. It did not explode. It did not break apart. It did not burn or melt or shatter. It simply disappeared. One moment it was there. The next moment it was gone, as if it had never existed at all. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Wu was the first to speak. "What was that?" Was already checking her readings. Her hands moved fast across her console. "They call it the Void Lance. It does not destroy matter, it erases it. It removes things from existence, from reality itself." Stared at the empty space where the moon had been. "They can erase anything, just like that." "Anything," confirmed. "A moon, a planet, a star, us." The bridge fell silent again. Everyone understood what they had just seen. The Dominion did not just have weapons. They had power beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. They could end Earth with a single shot. They could erase human history as if it had never happened. Medical officer checked her tablet. The crew's stress levels had increased significantly. Heart rates were high. Some people were breathing too fast, but she noticed something strange. No one was panicking. No one was screaming. No one was giving up. They were afraid. Of course they were afraid. Only a fool would not be afraid after seeing something like that. But they were still at their stations, still doing their jobs, still functioning. Had studied human psychology for 20 years. She knew that humans were strange creatures. They could feel terror and still keep moving. They could look death in the face and refuse to look away. It was not bravery exactly. It was something else, something deeper, a refusal to accept that fear should control them. She walked over to, "Captain, the crew is scared." "I know," he said. "But they are still working." "I know that too." Looked at him carefully. "Are you scared, sir?" Was quiet for a moment, then he nodded. "I am terrified, Doctor. I have never been more afraid in my life. I just saw a moon get erased from reality. I know they can do the same thing to my ship, to my crew, to Earth." "Then why are you so calm?" Turned to look at her. His eyes were tired but steady. "Because being scared does not change anything. The situation is the same whether I scream or stay quiet, so I choose to stay quiet. I choose to think. I choose to look for a way forward." Before could respond, spoke up. "Captain, another message." His voice returned. "You have seen what we can do. You understand now that resistance is meaningless. Your ship, your world, your entire species. We can erase all of it. Surrender, kneel. And you may be allowed to serve the Dominion. Refuse and you will be removed from existence. You have 1 hour to decide." The message ended. Looked around the bridge. His crew was watching him, waiting for him to tell them what to do, waiting for hope. He said, "Did you record that weapon?" Nodded. "Every sensor we have was pointed at it. I have the energy signature, the frequency, the method of operation. I do not understand it yet, but I have the data." "Good, keep studying it. Find weaknesses." He turned to Wu. "Chief, how is the ship?" "We are operational, sir. No damage. Engines are ready." Can we run? Wu shook his head slowly. No, Captain. Their ships are too fast. They would catch us before we traveled a single kilometer. Had expected this answer. He nodded and turned to open a channel to the alien flagship. Hesitated. Sir, what are you going to say? I am going to ask for a meeting. The bridge stirred, stepped forward. A meeting, sir. They want us to surrender. They want us to kneel. I know what they want, said, but I want to understand them. I want to know who they are, what they believe, why they do what they do. He paused. And I want them to understand us. Why does that matter? Asked. They have already decided to destroy us if we do not obey. Smiled slightly. Maybe, but maybe not. They had an hour to wait. They gave us time to think. That means something. A species that only wanted to kill would have killed us already. They want something else. I want to know what. He nodded too. She opened the channel. Fleet Commander said, "This is Captain. I have seen your demonstration. I understand your power. But I do not believe that power is all you have. I request a meeting, face to face. Let me speak with you directly. Let me show you who we are. If you still want to destroy us after that, then you can destroy us. But give us the chance to speak first." The bridge waited. The silence stretched on for a long moment. Then's voice returned. It sounded different this time, curious, interested. "Very well, human, come to my ship. Bring a small group, we will talk." The channel closed. Stared at, "Sir, this could be a trap." "It probably is," agreed. "Then why go?" Looked at the massive alien flagship on the screen. 20 kilometers of ancient metal and impossible technology. A ship that could end worlds. Because if there is even a small chance that talking can save my crew and my planet, I have to take it. That is what it means to be human, Lieutenant. We do not give up, not even when we should. He straightened his uniform and headed for the door. "You are coming with me. I am you too. We leave in 30 minutes. And as the captain walked off the bridge, his crew watched him go. They did not know if they would ever see him again, but they knew one thing for certain. He would not kneel. Mankind crossed into the Dominion, and even the galaxy's fury left them calm. Part 3, The Meeting. The shuttle was small, just enough room for 4 people and a pilot. Captain sat in the front seat, watching the alien flagship grow larger through the window. Lieutenant sat beside him. Behind them were Chief Science Officer and Security Chief IM. Was a large man. He had been a soldier before joining the space program. He had fought in 3 wars on Earth. He had seen death up close many times, but even he looked nervous as the massive ship filled their view. "That thing is bigger than a city," he said quietly. Nodded. 20 kilometers long, 5 kilometers wide. It is older than human civilization. The metal it is made from does not exist in our periodic table. Checked her sidearm. Will our weapons even work against them? Probably not, admitted. But we are not going there to fight, we are going there to talk. The shuttle approached a large opening in the side of the alien ship. Lights guided them inside. They flew through a tunnel that seemed to go on forever. The walls were covered in strange symbols that glowed with soft purple light. Finally, they landed in a hangar that was bigger than most sports stadiums. Other ships were parked there, hundreds of them, ships of different shapes and sizes, ships from different worlds. A group of aliens waited for them. They were tall and thin, with skin that shifted colors like oil on water. They wore robes of deep black. Their faces had no mouths, only eyes that seemed to look in all directions at once. "Welcome to the eternal night," one of them said. The words appeared directly in the humans' minds. We will take you to Fleet Commander." Stepped off the shuttle first. He stood straight and looked at the aliens without fear. Or at least, he tried to look like he was not afraid. "Thank you," he said. "Lead the way." They walked through the ship for a long time. The hallways were enormous, built for creatures much larger than humans. The ceilings disappeared into darkness. The floors were made of something that felt like glass but looked like stone. And everywhere there were trophies. Bodies, preserved bodies of aliens from countless worlds. They were displayed in glass cases along the walls. Some were small, no bigger than dogs. Some were huge, as tall as buildings. Some looked like animals. Some looked like machines. Some looked like nothing at all. Each case had a small plaque with symbols on it. Realized these were names. Species names. The names of civilizations that had been conquered by the Dominion. 9,000 species, she whispered. They were not lying. Felt sick. They keep them like trophies, like prizes. His hand moved toward his weapon, stopped him with a look. Not yet, said quietly. We are here to talk, remember that. They reached a massive door. It was 30 meters tall and decorated with scenes of battle and conquest. The door opened slowly, and they stepped into the throne chamber of Fleet Commander. The room was larger than anything on the, large enough to fit the entire ship inside. The walls were lined with more preserved bodies. The ceiling was made of glass, showing the stars outside, and in the center of the room, on a throne made of black metal, sat. He was not like the other. He was bigger, much bigger. His body seemed to shift between solid and light, never quite settling on one form. His eyes burned with ancient power. When he looked at the humans, they felt like insects being examined by a god. Around him stood his war council, 12 beings of different types. Some were not. All of them radiated power and cruelty. So said, his voice shook the air. These are the humans, the species that does not kneel. Stepped forward, we are. Leaned forward on his throne. You are small, fragile, your bodies are weak, your technology is primitive, your ship is a toy, and yet you stand before me without bowing. Why? Because bowing would not change anything, said. You would still do whatever you want with us. At least this way we keep our dignity. A sound came from the council. Laughter, cold, cruel laughter. Dignity, one said. He was made entirely of shadow. What use is dignity to the dead? It is all we have left when everything else is taken, replied. Raised a hand, the laughter stopped. You are interesting, said. Most species beg. They offer their resources, their technology. Their children, they promise anything to survive, but you offer nothing, you ask for nothing, you simply refuse to bow. He paused. Why? Thought carefully before answering. May I tell you about my species? Gestured for him to continue. We are young, said. We have only been walking upright for a few 100,000 years. We have only had technology for a few thousand. We only left our planet a few 100 years ago. Compared to you, we are children. You are less than children, I interrupted. You are nothing. Nodded, maybe, but we are nothing that has survived everything. Ice ages that covered our world in frost. Diseases that killed half our population. Wars that burned our cities to ash. We have killed each other more times than we can count. We have destroyed ourselves and rebuilt ourselves over and over again. He paused, looking directly at. We discovered how to split the atom. We used that discovery to build weapons that could end our civilization. And we used those weapons, twice. Millions died. Cities turned to glass. And still we survived. Still we kept going. Still we reached for the stars. The throne room was quiet. Even the head stopped laughing. We are not strong, continued. We know that. We are not smart enough or powerful enough to defeat you. If you want to destroy us, you will destroy us, but we will not help you do it. We will not bow down and wait to die. That is not who we are. Studied the human captain for a long moment. His ancient eyes saw things that humans could not understand. He saw the truth in words. He saw the fear that the human was hiding. And he saw something else, something rare. Resolve, pure, unbreakable resolve. You have fought each other, said slowly. You have destroyed each other. You have caused suffering beyond measure to your own kind. And yet you speak of dignity, of survival. Do you not see the contradiction? smiled sadly. Of course I see it. We are not perfect. We are not even good most of the time. We are violent and selfish and cruel. But we are also kind and loving and brave. We are everything at once. That is what makes us human. He took a step closer to the throne. You have conquered 9,000 species. You have ruled 11 galaxies. You have existed for millions of years. But have you ever met a species like us? A species that knows it cannot win but fights anyway. A species that looks at gods and refuses to bow. Was silent for a long moment. No, he finally admitted, we have not. Spread his hands. Then maybe we have something to offer you after all. Not resources or technology, not soldiers or slaves, but something new, something you have never seen before, a perspective, a way of thinking, a refusal to accept that anything is impossible. The stirred, this was not how these meetings usually went. You are clever, said. You are trying to make yourself valuable, trying to give us a reason not to destroy you. Yes, admitted. I am, but I am also telling the truth. We are not like the others. Kill us if you want, but you will never find another species like us. And you will spend the rest of eternity wondering what might have happened if you had let us live. Leaned back on his throne, his form flickered between solid and light. I will think on this, he said. Return to your ship, you will have my answer soon. The meeting was over. The guards escorted the humans back to their shuttle. As they walked through the halls of trophies, moved close to. Do you think it worked? She asked quietly. Did not answer for a long moment. Then he said, I do not know, but we are still alive. That is something. Behind them in his throne room sat in silence. He was thinking about the human captain, about the fear in his eyes and the strength in his voice. For the first time in 10,000 years, was not sure what to do. And that uncertainty was the first crack in the foundation of the Dominion. Mankind crossed into the Dominion, and even the galaxy's fury left them calm. Part 4, The Test. The Dominion Council met in secret. They gathered in a chamber that existed outside of normal space, in a place where time moved differently. Here, they could discuss the fate of civilizations without interruption. Presented his report on the humans. He showed them recordings of his conversation with Captain. He shared his observations about the strange species from the unknown corner of the universe. They are psychologically different from any species we have encountered, explained. They experience fear. Their bodies produce chemicals that tell them to run, to hide, to surrender. But they do not obey those chemicals. They feel the fear and ignore it. One, an ancient being made of crystallized thought, spoke up. This is not possible. Fear is a survival mechanism. All biological creatures obey it. It is fundamental. And yet these humans do not, replied. I have studied their history. They have faced extinction events that would have destroyed most species. Each time they survived. Not because they were strong or smart, but because they refused to give up. They compartmentalize their fear, put it in a box, and keep functioning. Another, the shadow being called, leaned forward. This makes them dangerous. A species that does not surrender cannot be controlled. They must be destroyed. Perhaps, said, but I suggest a test first. Let us see how deep this resistance goes. Let us push them to their breaking point. If they break, we destroy them. If they do not break, then we will know we are dealing with something truly unique. The council debated for what felt like hours. Some wanted immediate destruction. Others were curious about these strange creatures. In the end, they agreed to test. They called it the Crucible. It began the next day. There was flying through empty space when the first attack came. 3 Dominion ships appeared without warning and opened fire. Not the Void Lance this time. Something smaller. Something designed to hurt but not kill. The ship shook as weapons hit the hull. Emergency alarms screamed. Crew members were thrown against walls. On the bridge, Captain grabbed his command chair. Damage report. Wu was already checking his systems. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 12, engines at 60%, shields are holding but barely. "Why are they attacking us?" shouted over the noise. "I thought we were negotiating." Before could answer, the attack stopped. The Dominion ships pulled back, but something else happened. A strange energy wave washed over them. It passed through the walls like they were not there. And then the screaming started. All over the ship, crew members fell to their knees. They were seeing things, terrible things, visions projected directly into their minds. Navigator Bin saw his family dying, his parents, his sister, his childhood home burning to ash. He saw it all in perfect detail, felt the heat, smelled the smoke. Engineer Hanjina saw Earth destroyed, the void lance firing again and again, cities disappearing, oceans evaporating, 8 billion people erased from existence in minutes. Medical officer saw her patients dying, everyone she had ever tried to save, all of them looking at her with accusing eyes, asking why she could not help them. Every person on the ship saw their worst nightmare, their deepest fear, their most painful memory, all of it amplified 1,000 times and projected directly into their consciousness. This was the Crucible, a psychic assault designed to break the will of any species. It had worked on beings of pure energy. It had shattered hive minds that shared thoughts across galaxies. It had broken gods. The visions lasted for 30 minutes. When they stopped, the crew of the lay scattered across the ship. Some were crying, some were screaming, some were silent, staring at nothing. Pulled himself up from the floor of the bridge. His face was wet with tears. He had seen things he would never forget. His daughter dying, his wife begging him to come home. Every failure of his life played out in perfect, horrible detail. But he stood up anyway. "Report," he said. His voice was hoarse. "Everyone report." Slowly, painfully, the bridge crew responded. Was alive, was alive, was alive. They were hurt. They were traumatized, but they were still there. "All hands," said over the ship-wide communicator. "Report to your stations. I know what just happened. I know what you saw, but we are still alive. And while we are alive, we keep working." For a long moment, there was silence. Then one by one the crew responded. From every part of the ship voices came back, scared voices, broken voices, but voices that said the same thing. "Understood, Captain." Watched from his flagship, he had expected this. The psychic assault always worked. He waited for the humans to surrender. But they did not surrender. Instead, they started repairing their ship. The second wave came 6 hours later. This time it was physical. Hull breaches opened across the atmosphere, vented into space. The crew scrambled to seal the damage. Bin was working on a breach in the lower decks when a bulkhead collapsed. He threw himself forward to trigger the emergency seal, but he was not fast enough. The closing door caught his arm. When it found him, his right arm was gone from the elbow down. The emergency seal had saved the section, but cost him his limb. Rushed to help him, she expected him to be unconscious, or in shock, or screaming. Instead, he was using his remaining hand to bandage the wound himself. "I need to get back to navigation," he said. His voice was tight with pain but steady. "Who is covering my station?" Stared at him. "You just lost your arm." "I know, I was there." He finished the bandage and stood up. "My station, doctor. Who is covering it?" She told him. He nodded and walked toward the bridge, just like that, as if losing an arm was simply a problem to be managed and not a tragedy to be mourned. The third wave came 12 hours after that, a physical attack combined with another psychic assault. This one was stronger. It showed them not just their fears but their guilt, every bad thing they had ever done, every person they had ever hurt, every moment of shame and regret. Hanjina had been working for 30 hours straight by this point. She had not slept. She had not eaten more than a few bites. The reactor core had been damaged, and she was the only one who understood it well enough to fix it. When the psychic wave hit her, she fell to her knees. She saw her father, who she had not spoken to in 10 years. She saw the argument that had torn them apart. She felt the guilt of all the words she had never said. And then she got back up and kept working. When the crucible finally ended, 63 crew members were dead, some from the physical attacks, some from the mental strain, some from accidents that happened while they were distracted by the visions. The survivors gathered the bodies. They held a brief ceremony. They spoke names. They said goodbye. And then they went back to work. Watched the footage in silence. His stood around him, equally silent. They mourn, observed. They feel the loss. Yes, said. But they do not stop. No, they do not stop. The shadow turned too. What does this mean? What are these creatures? Had no answer. In 10,000 years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. Species that were stronger had broken. Species that were smarter had broken. Species that lived for millions of years had broken. But these fragile, short-lived primitive humans simply refused. They are insane, another said. Their minds are broken. They cannot process fear properly. No, replied slowly. Their minds are not broken. They are different. They see fear as an obstacle, not a command. They feel pain and loss and grief, and they keep moving anyway, not because they do not care, but because they have decided that stopping is not an option. He turned off the display. The test is over, he said. They did not break. Then we destroy them, said. But hesitated, and in that hesitation, they saw something they had never seen before. Doubt. Was doubting the path they had followed for millions of years. He was looking at these humans and wondering if there was something the Dominion did not understand, something important. Perhaps, said finally, but not yet. I want to speak with their captain one more time. And across the damaged halls of the captain stood among his wounded crew. They had lost friends. They had lost pieces of themselves. They had been through horrors that would haunt them forever. But they were still standing. And as long as they were standing, they had not lost. Mankind crossed into the Dominion, and even the galaxy's fury left them calm. Part 5: The Reckoning. Word spread through the Dominion like fire through dry grass. In the slave pits of 100 worlds, whispers passed between broken beings. In the factories where conquered species built weapons for their masters, the story was told quietly, carefully, in moments when the guards were not watching. In the prison ships that carried the last survivors of dead civilizations, the news traveled from cell to cell. A new species had entered the Dominion. They were called humans. They came from a small planet in an unknown part of space. They had faced the crucible. And they had not broken. The story changed as it spread. Some said the humans were giants. Others said they were made of metal. Some claimed they had weapons that could destroy the void lance itself. None of this was true, but it did not matter. What mattered was that, for the first time in anyone's memory, someone had looked at the Dominion and refused to surrender. On a mining world in the outer territories, a group of slaves stopped working. They looked at each other with new light in their eyes. If the humans could resist, maybe resistance was possible. On a colony ship full of refugees, an old being told children the story of the human captain who stood before and did not bow. The children listened with wide eyes. They had been born into slavery. They had never known anything else. But now they knew something else existed. Hope. The Dominion Council saw what was happening. They understood the danger better than anyone. Their power was not just military. It was psychological. They ruled because every species believed resistance was impossible. If that belief cracked, everything would crack with it. The humans must be destroyed immediately, declared at an emergency meeting. Every day they survive, our grip on the conquered worlds weakens. We are seeing unrest on 47 planets. Slaves are refusing to work. Prisoners are speaking of rebellion. This cannot continue. Most of the council agreed. They had built an empire on fear, and fear required certainty. The humans were creating uncertainty. That was unacceptable. But sat in silence. He had spent the last 2 days studying the humans, not just the crew of but their entire history. He had accessed their ship's database and downloaded everything. Books, music, art, science, philosophy, wars, crimes, achievements, failures. He had seen civilizations rise and fall. He had watched beings of pure thought create symphonies that existed outside of time. He had witnessed the birth of stars and the death of galaxies. But he had never seen anything like humanity. They were violent, more violent than almost any species he had encountered. They had killed each other over land, over religion, over ideas, over nothing at all. They had invented weapons that could destroy their entire world and then come within seconds of using them. They had committed crimes against each other that would make even the Dominion hesitate. And yet, they had also created beauty, music that could make even a being of ancient power feel something, art that captured moments of joy and sorrow and love and loss, stories that explored what it meant to be alive, to suffer, to hope, to die. They had cured diseases that killed millions. They had walked on their moon and dreamed of walking on stars. They had built machines that could think and wondered if those machines had souls. They were everything, good and evil, creators and destroyers, angels and demons, all wrapped up in fragile bodies that barely lasted a century. Found himself fascinated, and that fascination troubled him. "Fleet Commander," said impatiently, "do you support the destruction of the humans?" Looked up. "I wish to speak with their captain one more time." "Why, what more is there to say?" "I need to understand something." "Understanding is not necessary. Only action is necessary." Stood, he was the oldest and most powerful member of the council. When he stood, the others fell silent. "I have commanded the fleets of the Dominion for 10,000 years, he said. "I have destroyed civilizations that dwarfed your understanding. I have broken beings that you could not comprehend. I have earned the right to ask one more question before we make this decision." No one argued. Returned to his flagship, he sent a message to the requesting a final meeting. Captain accepted. This time went to the human ship. He arrived alone, without guards or weapons. His form shifted and compressed until he was small enough to fit in human spaces. He walked through the damaged corridors of past walls by the crucible, past crew members who watched him with tired but steady eyes. He found in the observation deck. The captain was standing at a window, looking out at the stars. "Fleet Commander," said without turning around, "I was not expecting a house call." Moved to stand beside the human, they looked out at the same stars. Too, those stars were familiar. He had watched many of them being born. Too, they were strange and alien. "Why do you not fear death?" asked. Was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I do fear death very much." "Then why do you not surrender? Why do you not beg? Why do you keep standing when everything tells you to fall?" Turned to face the ancient being. He looked tired, older than he had looked when they first met. The crucible had cost him something. It had cost all of them something. "Because surrender would not stop us from dying," said. "You would still do whatever you wanted with us. At best, we would live as slaves. At worst, you would destroy us anyway. Either way, we would be gone, everything we are, everything we could become, gone." He looked back at the stars. "But if we stand, if we refuse, if we fight until we cannot fight anymore, then maybe we survive, maybe we find a way. Humans have always found a way, not always, not every time. Sometimes we fail, sometimes we die, but sometimes we win. And that chance, that small possibility is worth everything. Consider this. But the odds are against you, heavily against you. Mathematically, you cannot win." "I know." "Then your resistance is irrational. It is illogical. It serves no purpose." Smiled. It was a sad smile, but real. You are right. It is illogical, but humans are not logical creatures. We are emotional. We are stubborn. We are foolish. We do things that make no sense because it feels right to do them. He paused. And sometimes, just sometimes, the illogical thing turns out to be the only thing that matters. Was silent for a long moment. You are dangerous, he finally said. Not because you are strong. You are objectively weak. You are fragile and short-lived and primitive, but your minds refuse to accept what your bodies cannot change. You feel despair and choose hope anyway. You see impossible odds and still fight. That is a kind of insanity. Maybe, admitted, but it got us this far. Looked at the human captain. He saw the in his hair, the lines on his face, the weight in his eyes. This man would be dead in a few decades, even if the Dominion never touched him. His entire species would rise and fall in the time it took to finish a single thought. And yet, this man had stood before the masters of 11 galaxies and refused to bow. He had endured the crucible and kept working. He had looked at certain death and asked for a conversation instead. If we destroy you, said slowly, we will never find another species like you. In all the billions of years left in this universe, we will never encounter minds like yours again. You are unique, singular, a pattern that cannot be repeated. Waited. But if we let you live, continued, you will spread, you will grow, you will change things, you will inspire others. The conquered species are already whispering your name. They are already beginning to hope. If you survive, that hope will become something more, something dangerous. Is hope really so dangerous? Asked. Looked at him with ancient eyes. To an empire built on despair, yes, hope is the most dangerous thing in the universe. He turned and began to walk away. I will tell the council my recommendation, he said. The vote will happen within the hour. What will you recommend? Called after him. Paused at the door. I do not know, he admitted. For the first time in 1,000 years, I truly do not know. And then he was gone. Stood alone in the observation deck, looking out at the strange stars of the Dominion. Somewhere out there, 12 ancient beings were deciding the fate of his species. He thought about Earth, about his wife and daughter, about the billions of people who did not know that their existence hung in the balance. He thought about his crew, about Bin, who had lost his arm and gone back to work, about Han Jinnah, who had not slept in 2 days, about all of them, scared and hurt and exhausted but still standing. He thought about humanity, all the good and the bad, all the violence and the beauty, all the failures and the triumphs. And he realized that whatever the Dominion decided, they had already proven something important. They had shown the galaxy that fear could be resisted, that power could be questioned, that even the smallest, weakest, most insignificant species could look at gods and say no. Whatever happened next, that could not be taken away. And in the halls of the Dominion Council, as the ancient beings cast their votes, one thought echoed in the mind of Fleet Commander. Maybe destruction was not the answer. Maybe it never had been.